it's the holiday season. So many of us are spending so much more time in our homes, and that can sometimes be dangerous, especially for people who are cooking challenged, such as myself. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is Deputy Fire Marshal of the West Bloomfield Fire Department, Dave DeBoer. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, this time of year, do you see more fires in the kitchen?
We will. During the holidays, we see more cooking fires, and those come in two different varieties. There's the cooking fire that everybody thinks about, where someone steps away from the stove and a pot catches on fire, or they forget something's in the oven and they catch fire. But then the days after the holidays, we see a lot of stove fires caused by people using the self-cleaning function. And self-cleaning, they should describe that much better in their manuals when they tell you to do that process, because it locks your oven and turns it on to a really, really high temp. And anything left in there is going to catch on fire. So it really isn't self-cleaning. You got to clean the stuff out of there before you do the self-cleaning thing, or you have a fire. And then you get to meet our firemen, which are great guys and gals, but most people don't want them as house guests. So
No, not with a fire. All my years of reporting and doing, the safety tips, I've never even thought about the self-cleaning of the oven. But
yeah,
it makes perfect sense now that you bring it up.
yeah, we'll probably have a dozen of them over the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
So
And with that, how about people with their turkeys and the deep fryers? Did you have very many fires with those
yeah,
this
we
year?
don't have many of those here in West Bloomfield. That doesn't seem to be a big draw here. We've done some training and some videos on that for the community and put those out how to safely do it, and it can be spectacularly dangerous if you put a frozen turkey into that boiling oil. It's a very, very explosive combination there that has reaction. So some people I'm sure do it and they're doing it safely. The biggest thing is get it out away from the house and the garage. I know it's cold and the wind's blowing and you want to be outside, but get it away from the garage. Cooking in the garage is a very, very big fire problem here in West Bloomfield, between stoves and ovens that have been installed in garages and other cooking devices like grills or turkey fryers brought into the garage, which should never be in our garages.
Deputy Fire Marshal Dave DeBoer with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Obviously, right now, everyone has their house decorated for the holiday season. Does that lead to certain types of fires as well?
It does. And we will probably have holiday decoration fires this year. We typically have a couple of them. And those can typically come from either candles or overloading circuits, putting too many light strings on a tree or too many on a circuit. You've got to remember and do some math when you're putting your Christmas lights up. It'll tell you how many lights can be strung together safely. That's a recommendation that's been tested. And there's a reason why they put that number on there. And they'll tell you how much wattage that string of lights takes. And if you add those numbers up, they've got to add up to less than what that 15 amp circuit that you put it on can handle. If you put more than that on there, you can overheat the wiring. Sometimes what we see is people put the lights up and they start them and it's colder out. Then we get that kind of fluke warm period. And that little temperature change can be the difference between that wiring breaking down and starting to fire or not. So we'll get that little warm period and we'll see a couple fires where they were just on the edge when it was cooler. We've also seen the holiday decorations. We had one fire just a couple years ago where 7 extra strands of lights were added to this tree that was already pre-lit, and the lights were turned on the day after Halloween. And on December 15th, we got to meet those people as it caught on fire. So, turn those lights off when you go to bed, let them have a rest, let them cool down a little bit. But even though we have LED lights now and it's lowered some of the risk, we are still drawing power through there and can have problems with connections.
What about the outdoor decorations because of the moisture? I know that I think the other day ours blew out because of the rain and we didn't have it covered. What should you do if that happens?
So it's shorted, or you probably have a GFI, what's called a GFI circuit on the outside of your home that you plugged into. And any moisture that becomes in contact with that is going to cause that to pop. And that's a safety feature so you don't get electrocuted if you're out using a tool or something on an extension cord. Those become challenging because that's doing its job. It's working properly and shutting down when there's moisture. What I do at home is I get the little devices that you can seal in the plug connections. They sell them at the hardware stores around the lights, and you can seal them in there. And then in some cases, even put a small bucket or something over top of a connection point in the yard so that it prevents that moisture from getting at them. So little things like that can stop that process from happening.
How many tree fires do you typically respond to over the holiday season?
In a good year, we go to none, and we always hope for that. A bad year, we might have 2 or 3, maybe even 5. We're a little bit nervous this year. We've heard the news that real trees are very, very popular this year, and people are at home and they want to have that experience with the family and go get a tree and bring it in, which is awesome. But make sure it stays watered. Make sure you're watering that thing every day. You'll be amazed at how much water that little tree can suck up out of the bottom of that thing. And if it's a tree from a lot, it may have been cut weeks ago. Remember that tree didn't just get cut yesterday. It could have been cut weeks ago and transported down here from northern Michigan. So it's going to be a little drier, but keeping them moist, definitely turn the lights off at night to give those lights a rest. But there's just a little bit extra hazard with that's involved with those. So be mindful of that, because when they go fast and they release a lot of energy into the room in a bad way. So
I've been lucky enough to watch like where they recreated a fire and how quickly it goes up, because furniture is made differently today than it was, back in even the 70s.
Yeah. If for the viewers at home there, look up, if you're a YouTuber and you like going on YouTube, look up a thing called legacy fires or legacy construction versus modern construction or modern fires. And you'll see some videos. There's one online that they took furnishings and things from the 70s. They put them in a room and set it up like a family would have it in the 70s. They lit that room on fire, and that room, you could survive inside that room for 29 minutes in the room that was on fire before it was unattainable. And then they did the same fire next to it, same size room, similar furnishings of today's products and today's plastics. And it was 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and the room was completely destroyed. Fires are going faster. You'll hear some people say they're burning hotter. They're not burning hotter. We have no science to prove that, but they're burning faster, much, much faster. And some of the things that we're putting into fabrics and putting into the cushions to try to prevent the fire, some of the fire retardant stuff, is extremely toxic when it burns. We're seeing a huge increase in cancer among our ranks, and some of the studies are pointing to that material being the cause of that. But yeah, today's furniture releases a ton of energy very quickly. That's why we push home fire sprinkler systems. They are the only thing that's going to prevent you from dying in a fire and get you to safety, is having those home fire sprinklers. Smoke detectors are great. They're the early warning. They'll let you get out. A home fire sprinkler system will keep that room from becoming unlivable. It will cool the ceiling. It actually isn't even designed to put the fire out. Home fire sprinklers are designed to cool the ceiling so that you have time to get out.
Wow, I haven't even really, I don't think I've ever met anyone that had a home sprinkler system.
They're very rare in Michigan. We're seeing more and more of them in apartments and condos and things like that. The cost has come way down from what it was. We met just a few weeks ago with a prominent developer here in West Bloomfield that's doing a project over the next couple of years, and we discussed it with him as some give and take so that he could get some more, so he could get more units out of his building. And in doing so, he thought it was going to be really, really costly. And when we went to the sprinkler contractor and said, this is new construction, can you give them a price? It was actually only $2,700 per townhouse is what he's building. So these are 3-story townhouses with a garage, all protected in new construction. It was only about $3,000 to add to the cost of that. It's pretty cheap insurance when you think about it. Here in Michigan, it's pulled out of the building code every single year. There's some process at Lansing where the building code is established every year. The international building code has had home fire sprinklers in it for over 20 years. And the states that adopted it 20 years ago are really, really happy with the fact that they did adopt it. States like California and Arizona, they have had it for the last 20 years. And it's actually not the fire department that pushes it. It's the water department out there that pushes it. The water purveyors are really, really happy because it takes 10% of the amount of water to put out a fire with home fire sprinklers, as opposed to the fire growing while we're responding to the scene, and then us using 90% more or 9 times as much water to put the fire out. And then think about the runoff of that. All of that smoke and all that nasty stuff is all acidic and corrosive, and it's tough for them to clean back at the water department to turn it back into drinking water. So some states that have adopted it are really, really happy with it, and it's helping our environment and helping their processes.
So do you think that's something that Michigan could adopt one day?
We hope so. We push for it every year. We would like to see it. Again, bringing that cost down has been part of that challenge. So we've got it down to what we believe is a reasonable price, and made a lot of exceptions to help make it work and get it into homes. And initially there were some insurance companies were concerned about it, but now that they've got the data from the other states, the insurance companies don't see it as the threat that they thought it was going to be. They envisioned more accidental set-offs and water damage problems, but that hasn't been the case.
Dave DeBoer with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the Deputy Fire Marshal for the West Bloomfield Fire Department. And we hear so much about smoke detectors,
Yes.
but not a lot about carbon monoxide detectors.
Yes, not nearly enough. I ran the numbers this morning, knowing we were going to talk this morning, and 15 families have been saved just this year alone in West Bloomfield by CO detectors. They are really, really important. If you have any sort of natural gas or propane coming to your house to supply appliances with fuel, you have to have this. You've got to have one in the house. If a furnace starts to leak, the thing with carbon monoxide is you can't see it, smell it, or taste it. There is nothing to let you know that it's there without having a detector in place to let you know that there's a problem. It's so prominent that all of our EMS rigs now, we have a big blue bag full of bandages and other equipment that we carry into every medical. We have an automatic CO detecting device right on the handle of that, strapped onto it, because we've had close calls where our crews were almost overcome by CO, where somebody dialed 911 saying they weren't feeling well or saying somebody passed out, and people weren't recognizing the signs. So we come in the door, and that detector lets us know we're in a dangerous environment because we can't see, smell, or taste it either. So it's that prominent.
So what are some of the signs if someone is suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning? What are some of those signs?
So there can be confusion. They can be tired. We see people pass out suddenly. They'll go to get up or start walking. There's somebody that doesn't typically have a problem with blood pressure or things like that, and they'll pass out. It affects the young kids and the elderly quicker, it seems like, than the middle range of life. So we see it in those, and that's commonly the problem. Is we'll see the call is because grandma won't get up, and we get to the house and find out, certainly during power outages, the big one is we have people running generators in their garage, and they'll leave the garage door open thinking that that's enough ventilation. It is absolutely not enough ventilation. It gets into the house, and it will get to the family. So we do see them. You gotta have these things. It's just not a question of if. And they're $35 roughly if you get a decent one with a little screen that tells you some numbers and gives you some information. they're not that expensive. We can get them right here at Ace Hardware on Walnut Lake Road here in West Bloomfield. You can get them in any of the big box stores. They're easy to get hold of, and well worth that little investment to protect your family. I give them as house gifts. When somebody buys a new house, that's what I bring to them. Nothing says I like you more than, hey, I don't want you to die. So here. So make sure your friends and family have them. They're really, really important.
Yeah, we got one when we bought our house. Someone gave us one as a gift. Is there a way to check them like smoke detectors?
They have buttons that you can push on them to run a little test on them. They don't really want you to try to test them by trying to pump CO into them. When they first came out, we tried to do that and test some of them. Matter of fact, just the other day, our guys were messing with a sensor at our new station, our newly rebuilt station, Station 3, and it wound up overpowering the sensor and damaging it. So you can't really test it, so to speak. But having it plugged in and a battery backup in it will protect you whether the power's out or not, or when that day might come. But anything that burns gas will create it. So a water heater, a gas dryer, a gas stove. Years ago, we had an old fire stove in the fire station over at Station 1, and if you had too many burners on, it would set off our CO detector in the building, so it wasn't burning as well as it should. And that let us know.
Oh my. So it's a good thing for so many people right now around the holidays to make sure that they do have one. If you know someone that doesn't have one, maybe that's the gift that you give them.
Yes, absolutely. And we're spending more time in our homes. We see some people that they say, hey, I get a headache on the weekends, but then when I go to work and during the week, it doesn't seem to be so bad. Well, that headache could be a sign that you have low levels of CO in your house. It builds up as you spend more time at home. And with a lot of people working from home, we need to protect you from that, because it can happen to anything. We've seen furnaces that were 6 months old and suddenly they started putting out CO into the house because of a bad seam or something in a weld. So it can happen to anybody at any time. It really can. It's not a new furnace problem or an old furnace problem.
Oh, well, that's a good reminder for us all. Thank you so much, Deputy Fire Marshal Dave DeBoer, for being with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Everybody have a happy holiday. Great to be on here and part of this program.